Hey, thank you, Reed. And hello, everybody out there in Cyberland. I know you guys are muted right now anyway. Um, a couple things real quick. There's 3 or 4 meditations I'm going to read. In fact, I'm going to start off with one in a moment. And when I'm working with patients in my office, I ask them to close their eyes. And so if it's safe and you're willing to do so, as I read these meditations throughout the hour we have together, I'd ask you to close your eyes. You know, some studies show us that we ingest more efficiently if we take away the visual stimuli. And I'm a big believer in that, actually. Um, also, I've got a lot of material here, so going to motor through this. And, you know, if you have pen and pad and you take some notes, that's fine, you know, and if you want to get together with me later or through Reed or Katie up there at Pavillon, because when I went through Pavillon as a patient, I had to do this, Reed, you know I had to do this. It was pronounced Pavillon, and we've Americanized it since I went back through that program. It was a closed group concept. Everybody came in the same day, and I went there in February of 2000, and we all left. They told us, you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here in March of 2000. And it was Pavillon back then. So when I talk about Pavilion, as you guys say, it's Pavillon for me. And so same place, just different pronunciation. Um, I am happy to entertain questions, and I would love to get some input, you know, whatever you have to offer about what I have to share material wise about self-love, which self-compassion is tied up in self-love. But I would like to give all the information first. And then when I finish giving all of you this information, then floor's open, I guess. And however, you know, Reed, Katie, conduct this thing. I guess, Reed, you're handling all this. Know, Katie, I think is on the back end here. So does that sound cool with everybody? Yep. Everybody can hear me okay? Okay. I want to start out with a meditation. So if everybody could just kind of close their eyes for a minute and ingest something, I'd like you all to hear this. This will be the first of 4 of them. This saying is from William Gilbert back in the day. And William said this: "You have no idea what a poor opinion I have of myself and how little I deserve it. Can we say I like me and really mean it? To say that statement and mean it, we have to like everything about ourselves, our good qualities as well as our bad, our appearance, the way we interact with others, the way we express ourselves. We don't have to love everything about us, but we need to learn to like ourselves. Liking ourselves doesn't mean we approve of certain traits or behaviors, but we can accept them. We don't deserve the low opinion we may have of ourselves. We aren't so bad. We make mistakes as well as everyone else. We aren't the most perfect companion, lover, friend, or parent. Neither is anyone else. There are very likable people inside us that struggle to change and become better. We deserve to like ourselves for who we are and who we're becoming." And I really like that last piece there about who we're becoming. I have been around addicts my whole life. I grew up in an alcoholic home. My father was an active alcoholic, even though he kept a job flying airplanes and people over the world. Some would consider that a functional alcoholic. And that caused a lot of traumas and problems in my life. And that got me back in Vegas in the 70s, wrapped up into any substance that you can think of. Um, and I didn't just use most of those, I abused them and even became addicted to many of them. So I've been around this for a lot of decades. And now I'm on the other side of the fence, so to speak. And I work with people that are having the same struggles and challenges that maybe all of us have had. And I have a lot of passion for this. And Reed, I appreciate those kind words, my friend. That means a lot to me. Um, I want to read a little definition, and I've read many definitions about self-compassion over the years. Been in this field now for a little over 2 decades. Not long after I left Pavillon, actually, I decided to go back to school at USC School of Medicine and get into this field. And I'm glad I did and wish I had done it sooner, actually. Self-compassion, what is it? Self-compassion involves treating yourself the way you would treat a friend who is having a hard time, even if your friend blew it or felt inadequate or is facing a tough life challenge. Sometimes life is hard and we struggle. Being kind to ourselves during the journey is crucial. And that's very powerful from my perspective. I've never met anyone wrapped up in a substance use disorder that was very fond of themselves. I don't think those two things can go together, actually, personally or professionally. I think if we're wrapped up in that kind of unhealthy lifestyle, we're not feeling very good about ourselves at all. And not just feeling about it, those tapes in our chest feeling, but also tapes in our head thinking. And so that gets pretty dark and unhealthy and dysfunctional. And it helps to propagate us on down the field further into the future, down the path of a dead end road, right? Jails, institutions, and death. Because I believe we are wired as mind, body, and spirit. My higher power happens to be God. And I believe we are wired and created with a mind, body, spirit. It is three in one. And for most folks, I think they focus a lot on their mind. I don't know of anybody that of their own volition wanted to lose their mind intentionally. And they also would like to have their body so they can go do life out there and have fun and get from point A to point B. But I think a lot of us, even if it is subconsciously, have tendencies to have this thought process that if I got my mind somewhat intact and can function at some kind of level out there in my life, and I have my body somewhat intact, spirit man, well, who needs that? And I believe self love is tied up very much in our spirit man. So, mind, body, spirit, self love. Self love is a deep sense of self worth. I've never run across an addict when I was out doing that lifestyle myself, which I did off and on for about 4 decades. And we're talking about heavy duty jails, incarcerations from coast to coast, 8 different states in a jail cell, in many treatment facilities, almost dead many times. I've lost everything a human being can lose but my life. And so, this vocation of mine that Reed said that I'm in as a clinical therapist is a job, yes, but it is also a ministry of sorts because this is about paying forward and giving back and working in some shape, fashion, or form to the best of my ability to give back what I possess as efficiently and as effectively as I can. And I believe then that's what we call service work when we're wrapped up in these AA or NA meetings. And one of the reasons I agreed to do this with all you fine folks out there in cyber world, and I appreciate you guys at Pavillon asking me because I consider this a real privilege and honor to be doing this. I truly do. But I don't ever have run across an addict, and I don't believe I ever will, and I don't have a crystal ball to see the future, that someone wrapped up in this lifestyle had much of any sense of self-worth, let alone what self-love is about. And that is a deep sense of self-worth. It also is about an ennobling sense of self-respect, a divine awareness of personal dignity, a sincere belief in myself. And if we think about those dynamics about what self-love is, um, an active drug lifestyle is not going to be incorporating those kind of dynamics. They simply do not go together. And so this is why I think self-love is so important because we can get ourselves into recovery. And that term, the dry drunk, I'm not using alcohol, but I'm not really doing anything else about leading a different lifestyle, a recovery lifestyle, so to speak. And that is how the dry drunk term came to be, because I'm still a miserable son of a bitch. I'm still maybe hanging with the same people in the same places. I'm just not using. you know, and it is so much more than just abstinence. And folks that just do abstinence, and I talked to them in my office all week long. It was a session this morning about this very issue. And I make it very clear to them because with me is what you see is what you get. We're not blowing smoke up the backside. We're going to call it like it is. Some heavy duty reality therapy in my office with the patients I work with. And that is about the business of if you just try to willpower this and just abstain, but don't do anything else, you are going to go back out. It's just going to be a matter of when and what that date on the calendar is going to be and how it's going to be packaged. I would bet my life on that statement because I've never seen it not happen that way before. Some can just make it further down the road by willpower and just abstaining. But this is why I think it's so important what Pavillon does, because when I went through back in 2000, it was a 28-day program, and that was it. There was no aftercare up on the hill after you got out of primary. There was no support systems. I think that many of you have been involved in, like after you leave, I think, was it for the next year, Reed? They got some supports in place there as part of doing the primary kind of thing. And it was 28 days. And a lot of this now is, I think, what, 42 days or something, you know? So there's been many changes, and that is changes because of trial and error. But even though then, again, going back to mind, body, spirit, if we don't really focus on self-love, we are going to be missing out on much in life, for one, but also it is going to really stack up the odds against us that we're going to end up going back out again if we don't learn to care about ourselves. You know, good addicts have tendencies to get very enmeshed and very codependent with others, and others' loved ones with them, the addict, and the relationship or the family system, you know. And so we don't really need to do the self-love because we got somebody kind of helping us out, so to speak. But that's not going to get it done long term. Self-love is also about knowing I am wanted, knowing I am needed, knowing I am trusted, knowing that I am present and connected, knowing that I am dependable, reliable, consistent, responsible, generous, understanding, patient, which is an issue because a good addict brain, as I say to my folks, is I want what I want, how I want it, when I want it, damn it. And if I can't align those planets, then it's a 52-year-old temper tantrum or a 60-something-year-old temper tantrum or even a, 15, 20-year-old temper tantrum, you know? And so we have tendencies with that addict damaged brain to not have much patience, you know? It's either this way now or then it's a problem. And I say to a lot of folks, we come from two perspectives on how we do life out here, interacting with the people, places, things, with all that pace and volume of life. And that is coming from here, using our brain, which I liken to first responders. We think it through, we triage, we reason, we respond versus coming from the chest. I'm pointing at my chest right here. And that is going by the feeling and reacting, knee-jerk reaction. We react, we respond. And that is how us human beings do a lot of different facets of our lives. And that's important to remember because as we go on through our days and different scenarios arise, and maybe I'm anxiety ridden or I'm kind of stressed out or depressed or whatever it is. And so I'm unsettled now, just under the surface, I'm unsettled here. It's very easy for us to react to something or someone. And we have tendencies then not to use this organ that God blessed us with. And we end up in some issues then that maybe become problematic to some degree in nature. And it's damn it anyway, woulda, shoulda, coulda, what if? And now I'm trying to clean up some mess, even if no substances are involved, But this good damage addict brain has real tendencies to want to go by the feel of things. And this is about the business where I think where we talk about, get into some kind of meditative work, different, concepts and dynamics for our self-care, and for our self-love, to just slow down the pace of what this life is entailing nowadays in our communities and society in this country, and to take time just to be and to think for our self-care, which is also fostering our self-love. And also it's about knowing that I am kind. I'm my own harshest critic, even in recovery. I don't need any enemies. I got it covered, thanks. I can tell myself and anybody else I fucked up here, okay? I don't need any other kind of critic because I am my harshest one. And most addicts are going to be able to say this if they're genuine about themselves. We can be very harsh and very damaging and detrimental to ourselves. And that is a process over time as we learn to do what self love is, to kind of cut ourselves some slack, kind of put the kid gloves on, if you will, and handle ourselves more gently, maybe nurturing in nature. What a novel concept there. And also is about knowing that I am forgiving, which is one of the most challenging pieces for most of us, because a lot of us have a lot of carnage and damage in our wake, some more than others. But I don't know of any addict that got far enough down a path that didn't have some need to talk about being forgiving of themselves and maybe others. Hell, we have one of our steps that talks about that very thing, right? About working to clean up some of that damage and carnage in our wake. Self love is also knowing that I make a difference. There were many times in my life where I was in such dark places, I did not feel worthy walking through those doors of that building that has steeple on it and whatever faith-based denomination I was practicing at the time. I would not go in because I didn't feel I could. And that is about the business if we just don't even feel worthy. That's a lot of dark in us. And I don't know of any addict that got far enough down a path that hasn't had some struggles and challenges with those kind of dynamics. I think it's just kind of built into that kind of lifestyle. Self love is also about being proud of myself, being happy with myself. Self love's about living beyond humiliation and embarrassment, which that gets into some about shame and guilt. And there's something called the 8 basic feelings. And 2 of those 8 basic feelings are shame and guilt. And each of the 8 basic feelings, which is anger, fear, pain, joy, passion, love, shame, and guilt, have these basic tenets. And the basic tenets of shame is embarrassment, humble, and exposed. Guilt, the tenets are regretful, contrite, remorseful. And each of these 8 basic feelings also has the gifts. And even you think shame and guilt, there are gifts there. The gifts of shame are humility, containment, and humanity. And with guilt, the gifts are values, amends, and containment. And when you boil a lot of that down, shame is about something is wrong with me. Guilt is about what I did, make amends, and let go. What I did, make amends, and let go. And I have not run across that person yet to date, over 2 decades in this field and living a lot of life on the streets from coast to coast in this country, that they were able to let things go easily. Because of that damage addict brain right there, we like to hold on to shit tenaciously like a pit bull grabbing the ankle, and we don't want to let go. And we're going to hang on till the bitter end, whatever that is. Resentment towards somebody or some entity. I got fired from a place here. It ain't my fault. Somehow it's somebody's fault at that entity. So there's a lot of ways to package that. The other part of self-love is living beyond my human limitations, which is about we are all fallible and nobody has an S on the proverbial chest, so to speak, that we do have our shortcomings, but to be aware of those and to work on those and to get to different places within us is going to help to nurture us and to help increase or obtain some self-love for us. Self-love is about being honest, which is about the incredible feeling of freedom that honesty gives me. How many good, honest addicts that are leading that lifestyle do you know of? Okay. You're going to see a unicorn run around the field behind them, is what you're going to see, because those 2 things are oil and water. Honesty and active drug addiction do not go together. That's how we get, blaming, rationalize, minimizing, denying, just flat out lying. We become a pathological liar. We lie about shit we don't even lie about. We're just so used to lying and doing all those things I just said that it just comes second nature. We don't have to think about it. It just comes on out. And we know we're doing it sometimes, or most of the time anyway, unless we're some blackout or something. And how are you going to feel good about yourself when you're leading a lifestyle like that, interacting with your loved ones, your child or your spouse or a coworker or, boss, whomever, a friend, neighbor. Self-love is also about discovering the greatness deep within me, even maybe contrary to family of origin dysfunctions, such as mine, and maybe some of you folks out there in cyber world now tonight. You know, it does not have to define us, and maybe it shouldn't define us. And we can talk about genetic predispositions and a lot of these other dynamics clinically and medically, but at the end of the day, we are our own unique human being, and we can set a course and path for ourselves in spite of that person, maybe in our family of origin or someone else. That is a real thing. Self love is also about believing in my own preciousness and uniqueness. We are all very similarly wired, but we are all very different in a myriad of various ways. That is the uniqueness. Sands on the beach, right? I think, there's some kind of verse about that, That's true too. Knowing that I am a spiritual being having a human experience. Again, spirituality, self love, that is all incorporated and wrapped together. And it's knowing for self love that I am divine faith, divine strength, divine love, divine wisdom, divine power, divine will, divine understanding, and divine imagination. That's a lot of dynamics. And we don't have tendencies to think about some of this more deeply unless we go to a treatment facility such as Pavillon, and then our clinical team and our therapist is working with us on these dynamics. But after we get out of that environment with all that nurturing and love being, gushed upon us, if you will, when we get out back in the big real world, so to speak, and it's one of the reasons why Pavillon has done what they did about having this extended program up on the hill, or even if somebody doesn't go to that, where you are still a part of the Pavillon family, even after you go back to wherever you initially came to Pavillon from. And while they do that for a year, because it is helping you to get back on your feet and having these support systems that you can tap into. And it is working about feeling needed and wanted. And it is about self love, is what that is, helping to nurture that. That's a big part of what they do there. And when you get out of there, self love is about experiencing God at work in me, through me, and around me. And it's one of the reasons why it's so important that if we are going to work on nurturing ourselves, goes back to those people, places, and things. And even though maybe the things of the substances I'm not going to be doing, but we have tendencies not to want to cut off some ties that maybe are more heartfelt, and sometimes some of those people in our life are very close to us. That's not easy to do. And it's why a lot of times it doesn't happen. Because many times when someone's impatient and then leaves to go home, they're going back home to an environment that's not so healthy. In fact, even toxic. And why a lot of times that patient is told, you guys got to do something about that relationship. You should not go back home. You should go to like an Oxford house or something, or go get your own place or something and work on you for a while, and then see with maybe clear eyes if I want to go and get wrapped up with this person again. Now, a lot of people don't like to hear that, but the reality is, for their own best interest and their self-care, working on them to nurture themselves, to work to acquire some real genuine self-love and to be able to live that and sustain it over time, because it's not just about obtaining self-love. This is a marathon, this thing called life. It ain't a sprint. It is about the business of having to put a plan in place, not just for sobriety, but also for about dynamics such as self-love, which is going to really help us remain clean and sober from whatever our drug or drugs of choice is or were, if we can really be caring about myself genuinely. That old adage goes that, one must truly love themselves before they can truly love another. I think most of you have heard that before somewhere. And there's a lot of truth sprinkled into that old adage. Because if we're not really loving ourselves, now we can say and believe we love somebody, but just because we say it or believe it does not necessarily make it so. because a good addict brain is very keen on having distortions in their perception of reality, even when they're not under the influence of a substance, actually. This is a real thing, too. Self love comes through self discovery, self discipline, self forgiveness, and self acceptance. And so we start getting into now how self love comes through. We start getting into maybe some existential type of issues. And that's about like, what are my aspirations? What goals do I have? What dreams do I have? Now, that's a big deal. Aspirations, goals, dreams. What is that even? A lot of people that come and sit in my office, what do you want to do with yourself? And one of the questions on my 5-page biopsychosocial assessment is, what do you want to be doing 5 years? What's your goal there now? And for the most part, they don't even answer it. Or if they do, it's kind of what I'm doing now. I don't know, kind of thing. That's sad to me every time. Every time that's sad to me. And we spend some time discussing and processing and breaking that down because it is about the business to acquire self love. I just spent time talking about what self love is. And now this is about self love comes through. Again, that self discovery, self discipline, self forgiveness, self acceptance. Those are big dynamics. And if we can't answer those questions for ourselves, I'm here to tell you that's a problem. That's a red flag because that's not okay, because that's not healthy in a way. And so it's time then to spend some time decompressing and slowing down, if you will, from all that pace and volume of life and being able to spend some time in real thoughtful, introspective work, if you will. And they do some of that, I know, at Pavillon in the primary. But that needs to also continue once you get out on your own and you're in your own home, wherever that is, and whatever that's packaged like, to be able to really ask yourself these questions and come up with an answer for those questions for your own self and for your self love. Self love produces self reliance, self confidence, an inner security, an inner calm and peace. We like to call that serenity in the program, right? Serenity. This gets talked about all the time. Serenity is about an inner calm and peace. Never met an addict that had that going on for them. They're going 100 fucking miles an hour right here, inside thinking and feeling, they're bouncing off walls like a pinball, especially if they're wrapped up in psychostimulants, you know. Self-love also produces enthusiasm, health, harmony, success, and happiness, even without alcohol and other drugs. I can't tell you how many people over the years, and it's in the hundreds now. How am I supposed to have any fun? How am I supposed to have any happiness if I can't go and use fill in the blank? Now they have a long, many miles to travel down a path, right, to kind of get that realization, maybe to have these epiphanies of sorts that, something that we can't have happiness in our life without being all screwed up on some kind of mind-blowing chemical substance. We can have it that way too. Steps to strong self-love. The last part of this right there, and I'm going to read some meditations, and then we'll get to you guys. Steps to a strong self-love. Get rid of your fears and your ego by processing them through the 12 steps. There's a thing called our id, our identity, and also our ego. Many people in our culture and society in this country, for a myriad of various reasons, have tendencies to start living under the ego. I have people say, do you know who the fuck I am? And it's some kind of high-powered attorney or neurologist, whatever it is. If you can think of the profession I've worked with in my office. And I'm thinking, I don't care what your profession is. I know why you're here. And you're here because you got in trouble out there, whether it's medically or legally or all of it wrapped up in substances, And so it's easy to operate under an ego, but I'm going to look at a healthy person every single time, a very unhealthy person, even every single time that's living their life under an ego. And it's about living under identity, who and what we're really about. which is what really matters, not what my socioeconomic status level is or what gated community or what car I get from point A to point B. Who cares? I don't. And if we care too much about those kind of material things, we've got some priorities that are backwards. And I would firmly believe that. Also, steps to a strong self love is about let your identity come forth and come alive, which is through discovering yourself with the 12 steps, revealing yourself through the 12 steps. Be yourself. Activate your 12 powers. It's also about being good to yourself. And that's about nurturing. I call it the kid gloves kind of thing, nurturing yourself. Foreign concept when we're wrapped up in this lifestyle. Being able to compliment myself or even to accept a compliment, which for many that I know, and I'm one of those people, I never liked somebody to compliment me. It made me feel awkward and uncomfortable. It's like, oh, don't even say that, because I don't even feel worthy to be complimented. You know, it takes some work to be able to be receptive and to ingest a compliment. It takes some work for an addict brain. And it's also about set new safe boundaries, which I equate to healthy boundaries. And sometimes that goes to those people and places. You know, it also is about steps to a strong self love, about having compassion for yourself and being able to truly, genuinely forgive yourself. That takes some time and work for anybody I've ever known, personally or professionally. And usually that comes incrementally over a window of time, step by step. It's not a kind of linear thing, but over time, when I work and chip away at all the damage of that lifestyle, I can get to a place where incrementally I'm able to get to that place where I can forgive of myself. And it's been that way for others that I've known and worked with too. It's also about improving yourself, about to keep on growing, to be teachable. There was a sign up in my neighborhood on the main road. Once you leave my neighborhood, this is probably 20 years ago, so I can still remember this with this sieve for memory from the damage I've inflicted, brain damage, literally, in my lifestyle. And they did a good job with this, whoever did it. But there was a picture of this lady's face, her head, neck up. Uh, my name's Rosie. I'm 76 years old. I'm taking this class at Midlands Technical College. And at the bottom, it's never too late to learn. And the point of me sharing that with all of you is when we talk about to keep on growing, it's not about hitting some imaginary autopilot button, hitting the cruise control here, and now I'm good to go. Because life is so dynamic and perpetual motion, even when we sleep, it's about the business of to continue to work to improve, to work to get me healthier, or to keep what I work so hard to put in place. Because just because we obtain it doesn't mean that we're going to retain it over time. Obtaining and retaining is two very different things. And it is about, if we're going to do a healthy lifestyle long term, we got to have a plan, not just to obtain it, but to also retain it over time. And it's why we talk about, attending, 12-step meetings, whether it's AA or NA or both. I easily could go to both of them. If they had some of these more illicit substances here in Columbia, 12-step programs, I could easily be going to those too, but we don't because it's not a big enough city. Atlanta and Charlotte's got some of these other kind of ones with meth and coke and all that stuff. It is about accepting yourself, about being grateful for who you are, grateful for who you are in spite of yourself, maybe back in the day, even. What a novel concept there. You know, that takes some work too, to being able to accept yourself. And it's also about commit yourself to a great cause, which is about allow yourself to feel useful and to make a difference. And that goes back to something I said at the beginning tonight after Reed introduced me, and that is of me giving of my time and talents. I may not know much about much of anything, but I know a little about a whole lot of shit at this point. And it is about the business of I want to share that with people, and then they ingest all those seeds I plant, so to speak, and hopefully it reach some kind of harvest because something meant something to somebody in some shape, fashion, or form in their life. And it's why I'm here tonight with all of you. Strive for excellence. Do not settle for addictive patterns or comfort zones. Give it your best. And that is something too. We know, I believe, in our heart of hearts, if we're doing the best of our ability. I think we know this. And I think there's also some ways to measure that, you know, but it's very easy for us to take shortcuts. I used to come up to the red light and it's red. Well, I'm Greg fucking Dahl. I'm not stopping. I'm important. I got things to do, places to go, man. So I cut through the parking lot or the gas station, area right there just so I can head on down my way there now. I'm surprised I didn't get caught and get a ticket. I know people that have gotten multiple tickets for doing something like that. But that's just one example of a plethora of them. We could come up with hundreds of ways we have tendencies to want to cut corners. You know, let me read a couple more quick meditations. These are all very short. So if you would, you guys close your eyes again. If you would, soak these up, and then we'll open this up and read, does this however it needs to do it. Okay, this is from Antoine de Saint-Exupéry. Love does not consist of gazing at each other, but in looking together in the same direction. When we're addicted to a person, all we can see is that person. Time moves slowly when we're apart, but passes quickly when we're together. We may feel panicky during even the most minor of separations and believe that we are fused into one being. Loving relationships are not made by taking prisoners. Love is neither hypnotism nor possessiveness. Love is simply a sharing between two people. Many times, the sharing involves movement in the same direction toward a mutual goal. Even though we're sharing the same path, we're not sharing the same body and mind. A successful relationship is one in which we feel it would be okay even if we weren't with that other person. To be able to stand alone as firmly as when we're with another means we found some sense of self esteem and self respect. We can love another and at the same time love ourselves. That's a big deal right there. The next one is this. This saying is from Austin Dobson. And Austin said, love comes unseen. We only see it go. How often are we blind to love shown us by others? Yet we are always aware when love is taken from us. Suddenly, we feel helpless, alone, rejected, and full of despair. No one will ever love me again, we may cry. Yet all around us are loving people, ready to give their support. If we only equate love with a sexual relationship, we will never see love's beauty. Love comes in so many forms and from so many people. When we experience the loss of a love, we may believe we have lost all the love that will ever be shown to us. Love is more than Valentine's Day and passion and giddy feelings of ecstasy. When we desire love in that form, we are like addicts craving a drug. The effects are blissful, but they are only temporary. Love that lasts, that stays with patience and strength, is the love that binds all of humanity. It is what makes us smile at a stranger. It's what makes long term friendships. It's what makes us feel pain as well as joy. Love is the connection we have with every person in our lives. And the last one is this. This is from Leo Buscaglia. I will love you no matter what. I will love you if you are stupid, if you slip and fall on your face, if you do the wrong thing, if you make mistakes, if you behave like a human being, I will love you no matter. Wouldn't it be nice if there were just one person in our lives who loved us no matter what our faults? And wouldn't it be equally nice if we too could love just one person in the same way? Love is not an easy emotion for us to feel. In the past, we may have associated feelings of love with negative feelings such as pain, hurt, rejection, or disappointment. But we can put the negative feelings aside and learn how to feel love as a positive emotion. Love does not necessarily mean sexual attraction or commitment. Love can simply be seeing someone for who he or she is, whether that person is a friend, coworker, boss, family member, or lover. To show love, we can keep our actions simple by making a phone call, writing a letter, or sharing a hug. Let's show someone we care. And one last thing here for all of you is self love is simply, I do not believe, an easy dynamic to acquire, especially if we have lived an addict lifestyle for any length of time. Is it doable? And unequivocally, beyond out of a doubt, I firmly believe and would bet my life on this. The answer is yes. Easy? No. Doable? Yes. And I'm going to focus on the latter of those two options there. And it is about the business of working as we heal in recovery, so to speak, to be able to lean in and embrace ourselves and to be able to acknowledge our humanity and our frailty in some ways, and to be about the business of working as best we can to spend time with ourselves in healthy, constructive, edifying, uplifting, positive ways. Because I know a lot of folks, and I was one of them, that as night would fall, get all amped up and anxiety ridden. It's like, oh my God, I got to go to bed. I've got to turn off the lights and there's no more screens. And back in the day, there was no cell phones, but it was like, now it's just me, myself, and I. Oh, but also with the demons in my head and those tapes running that not only could I not slow them down, I couldn't turn them off, you know, and self love is actually at the other end of that continuum where there is that contentment, there is that peace, and to work to continue to nurture ourselves when we acquire some self-love, which usually it's minimal at first, but it builds over time where we kind of fill ourselves up with self-love. And then to have that kind of self-care plan in place that I can sustain it, retain it over time as all this life with the pace and volume and all the externals, the people, places, and things kind of chip away at me. This is why it's so important for us to have a good self-care plan that most of us, I don't believe, did, especially when we were out doing our lifestyle the way we were, that got us affiliated with some kind of entity such as Pavillon. Well, I would say at the other end of the continuum of self-love would be self-loathing. You know, I just I'm not liking myself or even hating myself. Hate's a big ass word, you know, but it, you know, it's a real powerful word. And self-loathing, and I don't care for myself. And it's one of the reasons I think how we get on down a path a long way with substance use disorder lifestyle, because we're not liking ourselves and we have that loathing, and maybe for some that big old word again, hate. I hate myself, you know. And so I'm just going to use these substances, whatever they might be, and into infinity and beyond, you know, and just be oblivious, you know, tune out how I'm thinking and feeling. You know, there's something called the dysfunction process, and there's 7 stages. And we get down to like the fourth one out of the 7. We talk about then getting into complacency. Um, inaction, I think, breeds complacency, is how that one goes. And that dysfunction process is a big deal. And it made me think about that process when you said that and asked that, Reed, because it is about the business of taking time, what I was saying earlier, to get away from that pace and volume of life and to be able to just to have some downtime, some decompressed time. And for me, what works for my self-care is after these patient sessions in my office from 8 to 2:30, and I get home a little before 3, I go in the house, I check on the cats, I get changed, and I'm outside and I'm communing with. And so I have this bird feeder in the front and back and a bird bath in the front and back. And just as birds, getting some water or drinking, or the squirrels jumping up there and do that, because we feed the squirrels breakfast and dinner at night too. Yes, we do this kind of thing, but it is about the business of me for Greg Dahl, for my self-care, and to be able to really do some introspective thought process, which can only take just maybe 5 minutes even, but I can really get a good temperature gauge of how I'm doing internally, how I'm feeling with those tapes in my chest, and how I'm thinking with those tapes in my headspace. And if we're genuine and honest with ourselves and we're lucid and oriented times 4 to person, place, time, situation, we're going to get a very good read, no pun intended, read of how we're doing with us, ourselves internally. And if we are doing that with some regularity, we are going to be able to intervene and head off, me getting too far off path, so to speak, and getting off in the wilderness somewhere out here and getting to some kind of unhealthy place, where then the likelihood of me wanting to pick up something there to kind of get myself right again starts increasing over time. Does that make sense? I'm saying that? Right. And so it is about the business of taking our temperature internally with regularity, ongoing in time, ongoing in time, because then we can intervene and head it off. And sometimes it may just not be me that needs to be doing that. I need to bounce it off my sponsor or another loved one that I value their input on, because they got something healthy going on within their own self in their own life that I value, their feedback on, and then use our support systems we have, because good addicts don't like to use others, because it's me, myself, and I got it covered. Thanks. I don't need you guys. That's another common phenomenon. It's why it's doing the exact opposite almost is what that's about. But that's a good point there. Okay. Well, there's another good question. Um, for me, what I like to do is I jot down a lot of shit. Okay. I got little notes written all over for all kinds of things, right? Because again, sieve, brain damage here, it comes in, it goes out. You talk to my wife about it, she'd be happy to tell you all about it. But she says I'm very selective on what I choose to remember versus not. That's a whole nother issue. It is about the business though of having your own resource library. I've got a resource library in my office at work for the work I do with the folks I see and work with, but it's also important for us, I think, to have our own resource library. And so one of the ways that you brought up, Hunter, is, by writing stuff down. I think too many of us to try to keep too much in our headspace. And there's tendencies to get all cluttered up, kind of just swirling around like a maelstrom on there. And then how am I going to be able to tap in and use this thing when I kind of remember a piece of that and a bit of that and whatever. So I think one of the things is about writing, some stuff down. And I think one of the reasons why, we kept a diary back in the day, and back in the day it was, it seemed to be like usually females, and then they would lock it up and like put the key somewhere to keep it safe, hide it under the mattress. Now I guess we don't like that term, so we journal. It's the same thing, but it's about getting out of us what we've ingested. Journaling is also another really nice way versus just keeping notes. And I think it's very underrated about journaling. Another idea that I think is helpful is about the business to retain things is to kind of go over it in our head or reread something if I jot it down, and work to kind of get it some repetition. And one of the ways that happens is I read meditations in most every session with somebody I work with. Sometimes it's at the beginning, sometimes it's at the end. But to have something, and some people ask for copies and they'll write it down, or they'll tape it up like in their mirror in their bathroom, and so they read it every morning, kind of thing, about a particular issue or a challenge in their life. So to kind of keep it in your face, so to speak, Hunter, if that makes sense, and that's about the business of, we through repetition can really work to retain things. That is a lot how the neurobiology of the brain works right there about repetition. Repetition is a big thing. Repetition is what gets us to be a good addict back in the day in that previous chapter in our life, actually. I would like to leave you with this. By showing someone your humanity, you pay yourself the best compliment. Be kind to yourselves. It's not just about being kind to others. It starts with you. It's supposed to start with you. Be kind to yourselves. You deserve it. We all deserve it. I love all of you, and I appreciate all of you taking some of your time in our busy, hectic schedules and lives to be here tonight. That means a lot to me.